everyone. Today we are going to talk about a poem, Kubla Khan, which is by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote this poem in 1797 and it was first published by him in 1816 at the request of Lord Byron. Lord Byron, George Gordon Lord Byron, was a younger romantic poet and he was quite a celebrity at that time in Europe. And Samuel Taylor Coleridge was also a noted romantic poet during that time. And it was just the beginning of the Romantic period in English literature, in the history of English literature, which formally began with the publication of Lyrical Ballads. In 1798, Lyrical Ballads was a book of romantic poetry by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. At that time, they together were friends. And their book formally introduced Romanticism in English poetry, in English literature. Although Romanticism had already begun in English poetry and in English literature in general, even much before the publication of Lyrical Ballads. As far as this poem is concerned, Kubla Khan, as we have already talked about it, that it came out in 1797, it was written in 1797, and it has a story related to it. That this poem is fragmentary in nature. It is a dream fragment, which was written by Coleridge while he was during a fit of intoxication of opium. Opium was used by Samuel Taylor Coleridge as a drug, as a medicine at first because of his ill health, and he was prescribed it by specialists, by medical professionals. But later it became a kind of obsession for him, or we can say a kind of addiction for him. So it was an opium vision, or written in a dream. And at that time, Coleridge was reading a book, Purkis's Pilgrimage. And in that book, he was reading the story of Kubla Khan, the Oriental king, the king of Central Asia in medieval period, a legendary king. So, and he was reading an imaginary story in Purkis's Pilgrimage that Kubla Khan had ordered a palace to be built, a very stately palace with a stately garden in it. And it was expanded into 10 miles of fertile ground with an enclosed wall with it. And the author continued for about 3 hours in a profound sleep, at least of the external senses, during which time he has the most vivid confidence that he could not have composed less than from 200 to 300 lines. So this poem, as it came to Coleridge in his dream, during his sleep, in his dream vision, so it is a fragment that whatever images Coleridge saw in his dream, and whatever words he could recollect from those images, from those dream fragments, Coleridge composed those images into words, into lines of poetry, and but he could not complete it. So that is why this poem is a fragment. It's a dream fragment, and it is subtitled as Kubla Khan, or a vision in a dream, a fragment. So, or a vision in a dream, a fragment is the subtitle to this poem. Now, let's read it. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure-dome decree, where Alf the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground with walls and towers were girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree. Here, the poet says that Kubla Khan had ordered a magnificent pleasure palace to be built for him in Xanadu. Xanadu, the place, the imaginary place where the palace by Kubla Khan was ordered to be built. The palace was to be situated on the bank of the sacred river Alf, which, flowing through immeasurably deep caves, ultimately sank into a dark subterranean sea. So, a piece of fertile land, 10 square miles in area, was enclosed with walls and towers, and this palace had bright gardens, winding, winding streams, and aromatic trees bearing sweet smelling flowers, and there were also forests as old as hills enclosing in their midst sunny spaces full of green spots. So it was a beautiful romantic picture. It seems to be a beautiful romantic picture full of water bodies, mountains, steep falls of water, and trees and aromatic fragrances. So a kind of romantic picture is has been weaved into words by Coleridge here. And here were forests ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery, but oh, that deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart cover, a cedarn cover, a savage place, as holy and enchanted as ever beneath a waning moon was haunted by a woman wailing for her demon lover. So, in these lines, the poet says that the most remarkable thing at this place was a deep, mysterious gorge that ran down the slope of a green hill across a wood of cedar trees. And it was a wild and inspiring place, as holy and bewitched as the one haunted by a woman wandering about in search of her demon lover in the dim light of a waning moon. So the demon appeared to the woman as her lover, and after having made love to her, deserted her. So it is a picture, a kind of ghostly picture has been drawn, and ghostly pictures, ghostly scenes are part of romanticism, though they are also called Gothic. So the Gothic element uh, is also part of romance and romanticism. The woman, unable to forget him but fully realizing that he was a demon, haunts such wild places to look for him. So, a very glamorous picture has been drawn by Coleridge here. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast, thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift half intermitted burst. Huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flail, and mid these dancing rocks at once and ever, it flung up momently the sacred river. Here the poet says that a powerful spring of water gushed forth from this gorge at momentary intervals, making an incessant roaring sound. And the spring, violently emitting huge masses of water, looked like the heavily gasping earth. It seemed that as if the pressure of the water, the movement of the water was such that it looked like that the earth is gasping, uh, earth is breathing heavily, and the powerful outbursts of water threw up huge fragments of rocks that fell on the earth and rebounded like hailstones, striking the earth and flying off, or like grains leaping up from the earth when beaten with a flail by a farmer trying to separate them from chaff. So it's a kind of picture depicting violence, or we can say violence not literally, but a picture in which the natural elements